Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
Good, 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 good. Let me just grab my headphones over here. There we go. How are you, Lisa?
I'm good. Got my coffee.
Great.
How about you?
Yeah, I it's in the making. I'm gonna take it after the workshop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I woke up too late.
Oh, what time is it there?
It's 8.
Okay.
Yeah, had a long night yesterday, so couldn't sleep that much.
Oh, did you go out partying?
No. Yeah, I'm having trouble sleeping. I'm not quite sure what's up.
Really?
Yeah, it's terrible.
I had that last year, and I took what's it called?
Mela something?
Yeah, it's not available here in Australia, so there's something else. It's like some drops that you take, but yeah, similar to the melatonin or melatonin.
Melatonin, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and it actually worked. I didn't believe it could, but it really actually worked.
All right. If you remember the exact name, I will appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll send you an email.
Oh, we have company.
Simon. Hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm all right. All the better for a quick bike ride with my son around the local countryside, but I'm now back and showered, you'll be pleased to hear.
I guess those things don't matter so much on these virtual workshops.
No, you're not in the same room as everybody else, so it doesn't quite have the same effect. I'm tidying my desk up.
So, Matthias, I can't remember how we did the presentation last time. Was it just to share screen?
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So maybe I should do that. Should I just share the screen? It's asking what to share. Interesting.
That's it.
Awesome.
You can see that?
Yeah, that's good.
Great. Although I should change the date here to 2 November.
Yeah. 01/2 November. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rebecca said to me, I'll have that finished by Friday. And I'm thinking, oh, but I want it on Friday. I think, oh no, your Friday will finish before my Friday. That's good. But your Friday will finish before my Friday starts.
So, Simon, were you getting cancellation messages from me?
No, I wasn't actually. But then my calendar system is a bit chaotic anyway, so I always write things in, just in my own typing in, as well as receive the invites. But yeah, it seemed to be okay.
Yeah, because it's strange. The Outlook's been mucking up and sending out cancellations to some people, it seems.
Yeah.
Not all.
No, I've still got it here, and it's not got any anything trying to cancel it. And it's got this Zoom number on it. I occasionally find the Zoom numbers don't work, but I can usually get round that. If the link that comes in the safe links that's part of the UN system, that doesn't seem to work, but I go straight to the one you paste in that's just the Zoom link, and that works fine.
Hello. Radia, how are you?
Hey, how are you? How are you? How's everybody?
Hello.
Very good. What time is it where you are?
Oh, it's now it's 1 p.m. I think 1 p.m. now because I dialed when it was 1 minute so it's 1 p.m. now.
Okay, that's very civilized. That's good.
Okay. Oh yes, I'm just seeing an email, a deleted email from you, Lisa.
So you got a cancellation message?
No, I didn't. I saw the email. I didn't get that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was good.
Very, very strange. Yeah. Did you get to the bottom of that, Matthias, at all?
No, it's a glitch that Microsoft Outlook hasn't resolved yet, and it has been running for a few years already. Yeah.
Okay. I've never had that problem, thankfully.
There's a vague background noise, but it sounds like a didgeridoo. That's not you, is it?
Yes, I've got my ensemble here.
No, it's my fan, I think. Let's see.
Oh, is it? Oh, we'll leave it on. It gives a certain je ne sais quoi to the audio. It's good.
What does je ne sais quoi mean?
I don't know. Literally means I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, it means I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Adds a certain something to the nature of the meeting.
Okay.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi, good morning. Oh, good afternoon. I don't know.
Hi, Sandra. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too, Lisa.
Are you still in Spain?
No, I'm in Portugal right now.
Oh, Portugal, yeah.
Sí.
Yeah. Great that you could join.
Yeah, Sandra Andraka can join us today because she has some meetings, very important meetings. So she sent her apologizes.
No problem.
All right.
We'll just give everyone a few minutes and we will start maybe in a couple of minutes' time. Rebecca, you're here?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just figuring out how to put my headphones on.
Okay. And Adinda, I see you've joined. Then maybe you're on mute.
Lisa, it would be nice if you could unshare your screen so we can see each other.
Okay. There we go. Great. Yeah, that's better, isn't it?
Hola, Miriam.
Hola, buen día.
Hi, Miriam.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, maybe we'll start. We're still expecting a few more people, but I don't want to penalize the people who came on time by making you wait. So let's begin. Great. All right, so we might start. I'm not sure that everybody here knows each other. I know that some of you were at the last session, but not all of you. So we might start with a little round of introductions and a small icebreaker. So if you could just introduce who you are and your role, and if you could finish the sentence, when I dance, I look like. So I'll start. So you know me, I'm Lisa, and I was the former head of communications for GCP, and now I'm helping out mainly with country-specific roles. And when I dance, I like to think I look like a snowflake in the wind. Matthias, I'm going to draw you into this.
Hello, I'm Matthias. I'm the coordinator of this community. Thank you, everybody, for coming. When I dance, I like to be like Michael Jackson.
I can see that. Thank you.
You go, Gadia.
Simon?
Okay. I'm Gradia. I'm from the Liberia program of GGP. And when I dance, actually, I've never looked at myself in the mirror when I dance. And I think anybody has been brave enough to tell me how I look when I dance. So.
Great. Thank you. How about you, Miriam?
Miriam.
Now, my name is Miriam Miranda. I am the coordinator for the project called Productive Landscape, and I would like to look happy always.
Great. All right. Charlie, are you here?
I am.
Hi, so we're just doing a round of introductions, Charlie, if you missed it, and finishing the sentence of, when I dance, I look like.
Okay. So I'm Charlie O'Malley. I'm head of private sector engagement for GGP Global. When I dance, what do I look like? A gyrating octopus.
Okay, great. So, Sandra, over to you.
Hola, I'm Sandra Ramirez. I'm from Costa Rica, and I work for the Futures platform in Costa Rica. When I dance, I would like to be like an angel, but it's not really true.
Great. Rebecca?
Sorry, just unmuting myself. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be on this call. I don't know if I have met everyone yet because it's the first time I've stayed up in Australia to join this call. I'm managing communications for the Good Growth Partnership. When I dance, I think that I look like a professional salsa dancer. Like, I really think I look amazing. But then I look at the video the next day and it's more like Austin Powers hybrid. Totally. Yeah.
Okay, great. Simon, I think I missed you in the line going along.
I'm Simon Cooper. I've taken over from Lisa and struggling to replicate her expertise as head of communications for GCP Global. And when I dance, I look like John Cleese in the Ministry of Silly Walks in Monty Python. For those who know that too.
Great. Colleen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Colleen McNally Murphy. I am the Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Specialist for the Green Commodities program. And when I dance, I sort of feel like a boy from the 1950s.
Great. And Vanessa, I think I saw you there.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I'm Vanessa, the administrator of the GCP. Honestly, I think that when I dance, I look really good. At least when it's like Latin music, I have to say.
Great. Eileen.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I joined a bit late, so if I understand correctly, I need to present myself and to say how I look like when I dance.
Yes.
Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Aline. I'm part of the Green Commodities program team, and I'm the program management support for the Good Growth Partnership. And how do I look like when I dance? I mean, I'm currently trying to learn salsa and like Latin dance, and apparently I don't have enough grass. I don't know how we say that correctly.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, okay, grass. So apparently I dance without grass. That's what I learned yesterday.
Great. And Adinda.
Hi.
Hi,
Sorry,
Adinda.
can you hear me? Okay,
yes.
So yeah, my headset is a bit off. So I'm Adinda. I'm the communications officer for the palm oil platform in Indonesia. And when I dance, I look like I'm drunk, which is usually the case if I ever dance.
Great. All right. Is Dalma on the call? I see a message that she'll be here in 2 minutes. Are you here, Dalma?
There she is.
We can't hear you, Dalma. I wonder if you're on mute.
Let's go with Christina.
Oh, Christina, yes.
Sorry, I just got here.
Okay, Christina.
Yeah,
so
sorry, the traffic was terrible.
That's right. So we're just doing a round of introductions, and so just your name and your role, and finish the sentence, when I dance, I look like.
Okay, so I'm Christina. I'm the communications officer for GCP and GGP. And when I dance, I look like I don't know what I'm doing.
All right, great. Thank you.
And shortly we'll all submit videos to prove the point. Is that right?
Yes, that's what this session is about today. Dalma, are you able to hear us? Are you able to give us?
You all. So sorry for the delay. My connection was not good. I had to change, and now I'm here. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning. So could you tell us your role, and also could you finish the sentence, when I dance, I look like?
Sorry, if I could finish.
The sentence, when I dance, I look like. So what do you look like when you dance?
Oh my God.
This is an icebreaker.
I don't know how do I look when I dance. I mean, I just try to enjoy.
Excellent. All right.
Okay.
Great.
I'm the communications assistant for the Green Commodities program, also for the Good Growth Partnership, and I'm also working at the communications office for UNDP here, with for all the projects here helping. So I'm here
doing many things, it sounds like.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we work in many projects, many things. Yes.
Great. All right. I think that's everyone. Have I missed anyone? No, I think that's everyone. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit of an insight into who you are as dancers. And so I'm just going to share my screen so that we can begin the session. Okay. Okay, my computer is being very slow. This. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing. Ah, there we go. Let's try again. Okay. Great. All right. So some of you would have attended the earlier session that we had a month or so ago. And in that session, what we really did was we looked at some of the key challenges, but also opportunities that many of us face in our different work, both at the national level and at the global level. And so today what we're going to do is to recap some of those key challenges and opportunities. And we're also then going to do a scenario. We're going to look at a pretend country that I've made up, but has many of the characteristics of some of the countries that we're all working in. And we'll do some group work around that, and then after that share our experiences and insights into the group work. So this is the second session of 3 sessions, and the idea of the final session will be to reflect on some of the issues and ideas that we come up with, and then to work out how we can maybe collate that into a document like, say, for example, top 10 tips or some sort of useful document that we can take away from these 3 sessions and use in the future and share with our colleagues. But we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So I think my computer is going to be very slow today. I'm not sure why. As soon as I stop sharing the screen, it seems to move to the next slide. Hopefully. All right. So I've created a summary here of what we discussed in the last session. These are some of the key challenges and opportunities that came up when we talked last. And I've categorized them into 3 main thematic areas that emerged. So we had a lot of challenges on the strategy level. We also had challenges around the systems that for managing and supporting communications and the resources related to that. And we also had challenges around the actual production of content. So if we go one by one, in the strategy area, some of the key things that people brought up were related to, often we're having to engage with many different stakeholders and audiences. And there's a question around how do you prioritize these audiences and these groups? And how do you service the communication needs of all these groups? another issue that came up was that a lot of us work in very volatile political situations that are changing quite rapidly and on very, very controversial issues as well. So how do you create a strategy, particularly if you're working on a platform, where the platform remains neutral in this kind of very politically volatile and working on controversial issues? There was also the idea that there's far too many priorities often when it comes to communications. So how do you define what are the most important of those priorities? And then, making whatever you do unique and stand out from the rest of the competition was also one of the things that came up in this area. One of the opportunities that came up was that, of course, because many of us work with so many different stakeholders and partners, that there is a wide and powerful network to tap into for a lot of the communications work. So that was really in the strategy area. We might go one by one here, and I'd like to hear from you how these issues and opportunities, how they resonate with you. Is this a good reflection of what you would say is the main points, the main issues that you face?
Yeah, I think you're right about the political situation. We were looking, weren't we, yesterday at life in Indonesia and the progress of that program there. And actually, Adinda came up with a great timeline of what had happened. And we asked her to do both what had happened within the program and what had happened outside in the political situation that was trying to knock things off course. And it's really interesting looking at that, those two sides of things. And actually, I was thinking, besides the stuff that happens in individual countries, which is what we've got, I think most people understand by the political situation, there's also the worldwide changes that come along that affect all of the countries we work in. So, for example, the IPCC report 3 weeks ago, the WWF Living Planet report this week, those things that change the public filter that our stories go through, there's that that's constantly changing as well.
Yeah, good insight, Simon. Actually, Adinda, could I bring you in here, because I think that's a really good point. I mean, in Indonesia, you really are facing a very controversial and politically volatile sector that you're working in. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and the kinds of things that you've done to try to tackle that?
Hi, everyone. The big problem with the political volatility in Indonesia is, since palm oil is very sensitive, it involves a lot of stakeholders, and not all of them has the same views or intention. And even the ministries who are working in it are not really seeing eye to eye on it. So what happened with us was, in 2016, the project, initially we partnered with Ministry of Agriculture, but then considering the stakeholders and the ministries involved in palm oil, we decided to approach the coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs. And so it creates a bit of a ripple between us and the Ministry of Agriculture. But thankfully, we have our national project manager used to work with the Ministry of Agriculture for a long time. And also our advisor is used to be the Vice Minister of Ministry of Agriculture. So we can somehow sort of calm it down a bit. But now we just try to make sure that both of the ministries that are on the top, they always they're representative in our communication. So it's not just one ministry. We try to also involve both of them so they don't feel like one is more than another. But it's been quite a bit of a challenge to balance the two.
Okay, great. And Adinda, you're working now with a PR agency. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you hope that will do in terms of helping to tackle this sort of very controversial landscape that you're working in?
Yes, we are about to work with a PR agency, considering like after 2 years working here, it's just, we realized that Indonesia is really big and lots of stakeholders and everything. And after 2 years or more working in the project, you sort of need outside help to help you see better about what the situation is and coming up with new strategies and innovations to do it. And considering we are about to finish with our national action plan and it's going to be incorporated into a presidential regulation, so we're gearing up to a national campaign on the NAP and also to elevate the platform for the next year or so. So yeah, we're working with PR agency to help us map to the media, map the stakeholders nationally and provincially, and help us to shape up all the campaign plan and strategies.
Great, that's really interesting to get that outside perspective and get that outside support. Great. Does anyone else have something they'd like to share on the strategy element?
Yeah, I was listening to the issues from Indonesia, and for our country, Liberia is quite small. We don't have the issues with, especially government partners like Indonesia. Our issue here is actually with the private sector and our engagements with them. So it's not with the government. For us, the government is, we are working very closely. We are on good terms. Everything is copacetic for now. So, but for the private sector, recently it was announced that we have this oil plantation called Golden Ferritium. They actually pulled out of the RSPO process, and they are no longer members or whatever. So we've been having this issue about how we can send out messages, the right messages, to get them back on our platform, because they have left the platform. And they are a key player in the private sector in Liberia. They and Sam Darby, Liberia, are two of the largest oil palm concessions. So even at our meetings now, I'm personally thinking, going over and over in my head, how do we discuss issues without offending them when they are back at the table? You understand? Because at our table, the civil society organizations are quite strong and vocal, and they can say a lot of things that might antagonize the private sector. So that's what I'm working on now these few weeks. If we get them at the table, how can we make them feel not attacked, you see? So yeah, I'm just trying to compare, look at the differences between Indonesia and Liberia. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think you've hit on a really important point there, that fine balance of how do you stay neutral but still, say something of substance in those very tricky sort of, where you have so many different stakeholders coming from such different areas. Very interesting. Thank you. Would anyone else like to share anything on the strategy side or on anything that Adinda or Gardenia has said?
It's Charlie here. Yeah, I'm interested in the relationship between communications and platform strategy, and curious about how we can. One issue that's been coming up quite a lot recently in conversations that I've been having is the need to use more positive narratives for the work that we do. So instead of using a lot of negatives around, for example, no deforestation, no peat, no exploitation, which is 3 no's, how we can think about the positive framings about economic growth and livelihoods and market opportunities that align better with political priorities and align better with private sector priorities. And that isn't just a sort of needs to be more than just a bolt on, we write a few blog posts that have a positive framing. It needs to be like a central part of all of our thinking, which goes to the heart of the strategy of our platforms. And I notice in my work with the private sector, I'm trying to think about that language of, use the language of the private sector, which is about, preserving, supply chain development, inward investment into supply chain development, developing market opportunities, protecting, security of supply, and sort of try to frame it in those terms, lead with those terms which speak to the commercial rationale, and then make the link into the sustainability agenda and why the two things go together and how they fit. Sort of how can we make communications not like a bolt-on activity that happens after the event, but actually integrated into our the core strategy of our platforms and how we position them.
If I can just quickly add on to your point, Charlie, there was a really good video that came out of your recent private sector roundtable at the beginning of the month, which Rebecca just sent the links out to. But John, what's his name, Hartman from Cargill?
From Cargill.
He said, Cargill's been here for 150 years, and we're doing this work because we want the business to be here in another 150 years. So it was exactly to your point about investing in the sustainability of the supply chain, investing in the whole sector for business longevity, and he made that link so clearly. And so I think that's, the kind of thing that we can really build on.
Yeah, if you talk to businesses, they very seldom say, I want to make loads of profits in the next 5 years and then go pop. They're all looking for long-term sustainability in their own terms. And the thing that struck me when Charlie was speaking, and also the first point in the strategy column there, engaging many different stakeholders and audiences. Too often we sit down and look at the differences between the different stakeholders and audiences, but actually there's a whole load of stuff they hold in common. And if you can try and get that on the table and discussed and agreed, then you end up with a far more fruitful conversation than you do if you get adversarial about it. But there are people who campaign on this, of course, and you have to work out how to make that campaigning fit the collaborative view that we take as well.
Great. One of the things that we recently did in Papua New Guinea was exactly that, bringing the different stakeholders together in a workshop. And we actually figured out what is it that we say together as a group on these issues and develop messaging around that. And it was a very interesting process because different groups figured out their positions throughout the process and then came away with a new way of talking about the work. So an activity like that can be very powerful for looking at the commonalities, as you say, Simon.
And it's also about illustrating the future we all want, as corny as that might sound. But I mean, even me this month, there's been so many reports that have come out, like the IPCC report, majorly depressing, this WWF report this week. And it's, even me, it's my job to be reading this stuff and caring about these things, but just feel really disheartened half the time. And, I know kind of often when we communicate this work, we do kind of start with the challenge, and sometimes it's not really that inspiring, talking about all the problems in the sector and this is how we're going to fix them. Maybe we can start thinking about how we can position the communications around reimagining a future we all want, like a direction we all want to move forward in together, all the different stakeholders. As Simon says, finding the commonalities.
Great. Anyone else have a thought on that? Okay, so I love your term, Rebecca, reimagining the future. Fantastic way of capturing it. So we'll move on to the second basket of challenges that we identified. And this was really about the nuts and bolts of how communications works. And what many of you sort of identified was these sort of heavy and unclear approval processes that you often face. Coordinating between different partners and stakeholders. So, simple things like getting communications material signed off and approved by all the different stakeholders who are involved, or partners, who are involved. And then, of course, the lack of human and financial resources was also something that was identified. I might bring you in here, Rebecca, just to kick off this part, because I know in GGP you've really tried to tackle this issue of the systems and to manage the resources really well. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about your experience and the kinds of things that you've done.
Okay, Lisa asked me about this afternoon, and I was like, I don't really know if I'm doing well on this. But I'm trying, and I think it's something we can all relate to as communications people. So I appreciate your struggle. But when I thought about it a little bit today, after Lisa asked me to think about what kind of advice I could give, I think my number one thing is kind of like setting a culture of, without sounding like a stickler for, I don't know, deadline, but kind of setting a culture for, specific feedback times and project management. I know it's not really that common in the development sector. I mean, I've had experience on the other side of the fence as well, working for a communications agency, and it's very different. You're reporting to clients, and when you commit to a deadline, you commit to a deadline no matter what. It's kind of like talking about the bottom line and keeping that client. But in the development sector, it's a lot different, and we're kind of reporting to, sometimes we're working with governments that have completely different deadlines, and we're dealing with politics, and it's really hard to kind of like maintain sort of momentum moving forward. But when I first came to work with the Good Growth Partnership, I think, as we know, it takes a while to get these contracts with the UNDP sorted sometimes. And I remember, I think we had about 5 weeks before, or something like that, 5 or 6 weeks, 6 weeks, we're lucky, to launch the partnership, and we didn't have a name. We had nothing, like absolutely nothing. It was called the IAP Pilot Project or something like that. And I was just like, okay, how am I going to do this without having a breakdown? We've got, 6 different partners, all global agencies. We have to get all this stuff approved, got to get everyone to agree on it. And I just felt from this point, I just wanted to really set the standard. Like these are the dates that you need to have your feedback by. It's up to you, organisation, to run it through all your agencies. And if people miss the deadline, and sometimes they did, I kind of just had to say, I'm sorry, but we have to keep moving forward. And people started to get used to that idea and really took it seriously. And I know it's not always like that, and it still isn't like that for me. But if anything, I found a little bit of project management and setting out clear dates has helped me a little bit, managing lots of different stakeholders. And one other thing, just quickly, sometimes I use like a survey tool. There's one that I use called Typeform, I think. Sometimes it's quite difficult to get that consensus or get someone to make an executive decision. I know that we all kind of suffer with all this back and forth, and that drags out deadlines as well, and it's super painful. But sometimes if you can kind of get a general consensus, and it can help back up a decision to say, look, we're going to take it in this direction. The majority of you agreed, and this is how we're going to move forward. Otherwise, sometimes you get stuck with the back and forth. I think this, no, I think this. I don't really have a good example there, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thanks, Rebecca. Did anyone else have any thoughts on the systems and resources? Okay, great. So, and then the third area that we discussed last time was all around getting good content from the field, around production. So one aspect of that is how do you get good content from the field? And also, often we're dealing with very complex processes or issues. How do you turn those very complex ideas and processes into engaging content? Also, you know, again, the idea of having many different audiences and different content for different audiences. And of course, the resources comes into this area of production as well. On the opportunity side here, some of the things that came up last time was that even though many of these things are challenges, what we do have is access to interesting stories from the field that often many organisations don't have because they don't have sort of a field base. And the new technologies that are available now provide a lot of new opportunities to, you know, maybe use iPhones or different ways of actually sourcing content from the field. So does this resonate with the group? Was there anything else that anyone wanted to add to this, or any comment that you wanted to make in relation to the production?
One thing that I've noticed or just thought about right now in terms of the new technology opportunities, there's so many platforms these days, so many different formats media-wise, you know. Do we want to do videos or blogs or podcasts, or are we on Instagram or Facebook? And it seems like it would be so easy from a comms perspective to have a completely scattered approach, that having that strategy for what type of content, how it's going to be gathered, who's going to be doing it, how it's going to be put out, that's actually a hugely important part of the comms process.
Yeah, great point. Like, actually, in this world of so many choices, how do you focus and prioritize? Is that what you mean, Colleen?
It is, yeah. And, you know, something new and exciting comes up and you want to take advantage of it, and you want to like be at the forefront or be where actually the conversation is happening. And so I think there's a balance to be struck, certainly, between, you know, really taking advantage of the new opportunities and saying, no, that's actually not what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The other new technology point, of course, is that it used to be that we only had one route to market, or a couple of routes to market, which would be a bottleneck we'd have to get through to get into a newspaper or a print product of some sort. And now we have our own routes to market. So that's a great freedom that we have nowadays. And it makes it interesting, I think is the right word, for us to think about what the right route to market for certain information is. You know, do we always see the publication in the national newspaper as the very peak of achievement, or is there some other way of doing that that's much more relevant to our sorts of audiences? So I'm delighted by the fact we don't have to go through those single gatekeepers any longer that we used to have to do even 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. This morning I was looking at the program for next week's Innovation Forum in London on landscapes, where I tried to get a speaker slot unsuccessfully, and most of the people in sort of the UK, or a lot of the people in the UK and Europe who we need to access are going to be at that event, but we're not going to be speaking at it. So obviously speaking at those type of events with where key audiences are there can be hugely valuable for us. if we've got something particularly useful to say. I think organizations that are quite research focused tend to be in demand for speaking at industry events, because they are bringing new content to events, and so then if you've got good content, then getting on platforms and into interesting channels becomes a whole lot easier. So this is where the loop between our knowledge management and learning feeding into our comms, feeding into outreach, stakeholder engagement, all begins to become like a virtuous circle.
Absolutely. Great. All right. So were there any final comments that anyone wanted to make?
I was just wondering, I mean, I'm genuinely interested in how people go about prioritizing all the different demands and ideas, and I don't know, I'm genuinely interested if anyone has any comments on that.
Sandra, you've had quite a lot of success with your strategy. Do you have any thoughts on Rebecca's question of how to prioritize in the world of all these demands?
Well, I think that it depends on your resources and the capacity that you have to develop and to produce more contents and more media resources. In our case, I have discovered in Costa Rica and Fisheries platform that the most simple sometimes is the more successful. In our case, in the last 4 or 5 months, we have been developing some simple women's stories on fisheries. In large pelagic is an activity where most people involved are men, and so we are trying to discover who women are behind this activity, and we're trying to put these women in front of the screen. And I think that this have produced some good results in terms of our exposition in social media, in our website, and anytime that we share a women's story on fisheries, we have a peak in our media KPIs. So I think that this is a recent discovery, and we can point this as a good example on how simple stories or simple resources can get better results. It's my point, and this could be a good guide to prioritize in terms of production, contents, and strategies.
So what format do those stories take, Sandra? Are they video, or how are you producing them?
Our stories are very simple. For now, we have only a story, a piece of a story writing and published on our website. In some cases with some audio or small video, but they are very, very simple. And we now are thinking that we can improve that. We don't have a very good pictures of those for those stories, and we are thinking that the next step is going back to these stories and improve the quality of production. But for now, they are very basically a story on our website. That's all.
And that reminds me that nearly always the easiest way to make complex processes and issues into engaging content, which is your second point on the right-hand column, is to get real people to talk about them. And you then get, from the audience's point of view, an identification. They see, in your case, in that story, another woman talking about her work in fisheries, and they'll think, oh, right, okay, there's somebody like me. And if you can get more of that people like us material in there, it's very often the simplest way to make those processes come alive.
Great point, thank you. Okay, so this, in the interest of time, I think I'll move us along to the next part. But I'm glad that it seems that it has reflected that these issues are sort of the ones that we've mainly captured. Great, so the next part, this should take about half an hour. We might do it a bit faster as we're running late. So the case study is on a country called, a made-up country called Zealandia, which is in the Pacific. And I guess I'll have to stop sharing my screen again in order for my computer to move forward. Okay, so now we have all this text. All right, so this text was supposed to come at different times, but let's start with the text on the right. This is the information about Zealandia. So it's home of 8 million people. So just to, sorry, to go back one step. So we're going to divide into groups. Matthias, how many people do we have on the call? Is it 10?
Let me see, 12.
12, okay. So we'll divide into 4 groups of 3. Is my maths right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, 4 groups of 3. And in those groups, you'll choose to work either on a strategic solution, on a systems process solution, or on a production solution to this scenario in Zealandia. So let me tell you a little bit about Zealandia. It's a Pacific island of home to 8 million people. They're known for their passion for dancing, stand-up comedy, and archery. Most people live in rural areas, and agriculture drives the economy, with palm oil being the largest agricultural export. Much of this palm oil is certified as sustainable and sold to high-value European markets, but there are problems. New investors are entering the market and using a less sustainable business model that focuses on deforestation. Palm oil is also very controversial in Zealandia because it's linked to land grabbing, government corruption, and negative environmental impacts. Travel in the country is expensive and difficult with few roads, and most people get their news and favourite stand-up comedy shows via the radio, but increasingly Facebook is taking off. In the cities, people have more access to newspapers and to TV. So that's the general information about Zealandia. Does anyone have any questions about this country? No? Okay, great. So with support from UNDP, Zealandia is set to launch a multi-stakeholder palm oil platform that's led by the government. You work for UNDP and you're tasked with managing communications for this platform. So, stop sharing my screen. All right, I'm truly sorry about my computer and its geriatricness today. But while we're on this slide, you might want to take a photo or write some of these key points down, because you'll need it when you go into the rooms working in your groups. So while my computer takes its time to go to the next slide, it might be a good opportunity to write some of this information about Zealandia down. Okay. So in your group, so the task is like this. In your group, you'll decide which area you want to focus on, whether it's strategy, systems, or production. If you choose strategy, you need to devise a plan or a series of actions for addressing the political sensitivities surrounding palm oil in Zealandia. If you choose systems, you need to figure out a way of getting the different partners who are involved in making the platform work. So there's 2 government agencies, 2 civil society representatives, and 2 private sector business representatives. You need to figure out systems for getting them to work together on communications efforts, ensuring that the government leadership is visible. If you choose to go with production, you need to develop a plan for telling the platform story in this introductory phase of the platform, and to identify who is this story being told for or communicated to. You can, in your group of 3, you can decide how you're going to approach this task, but I am suggesting that maybe you want to start by spending 10 minutes or so sharing your own experiences in what's worked and what hasn't, or taking from the rich discussion we've just had around maybe reimagining the problem, reimagining the situation in a more positive context, and then to develop a concept or a series of actions to address one of the above challenges. And then we'll come back and share that with the group. I'm sure you have questions about this task. Is it clear? Does anyone have a question?
Lisa, do you mind putting the prompts, if you choose strategy, if you choose systems, et cetera, in the chat so we can refer back to it when we're in our groups?
Yep. That's a good idea.
What's the difference between, under strategy it says devise a plan or series of actions, and the production it says develop a plan. So develop a plan for telling the story in this introductory phase. Under strategy it says devise a plan for addressing the politically sensitive issues. What's the distinction between the 2?
Yeah, so if we recall that in Zealandia, some of the politically sensitive issues around palm oil is that it's linked to government corruption, it's linked to land grabbing and deforestation. So in the strategy element, what you're looking to do is to develop a plan or a series of actions that would help the platform to communicate in this very politically sensitive environment and
right.
On these political issues.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas the production telling the story, this is more around sort of what sort of communications material will you produce and for whom and how will it be delivered to tell the platform story.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
So systems is a bit more the how do you go about it. Production is a bit more the what do you do. Is that fair? And strategy is, yeah, a bit of more sort of the strategic approach given the political sensitivity.
Yeah, exactly.
Systems is creating a way of going about it. Production's more focused on the outputs.
Yep, that's one way of looking at it. I mean, the systems is also a little bit more about how are you going to make, for example, like what what Rebecca was talking about before. You've got all these different groups and stakeholders involved, and they often need to sign off on material. They need to be involved in the production of communications material. How will you go about getting these groups to work together in an efficient and effective way to produce and communicate? Particularly, for example, you know, how will you get them to adopt a certain strategy, agree to communicating similar messaging, sign off processes for materials, that kind of how is it actually going to work? And production is very much about what will you produce and for who. Yeah. Okay, great. Any other questions? No? Okay, so I'm in Matthias's hands for organising the groups and the rooms. I think the way, how do you suggest, Matthias, that we divide up the groups?
Yeah, I think it's better to do it in fewer groups. Like three groups is enough, I think.
Okay.
So let me work it out really quickly.
Could we put Charlie and Gardia and Adinda in the same group? Because I think you guys have a lot to talk about in terms of private sector, and you know, there's probably a lot you can share having seen what you've shared today. So it'd be great if you guys could work in the same group.
That's good. I can do that. Okay. All right. I'm setting the groups right now.
Do we need to do anything, or are we just going to be transported Star Trek-like into a particular part of the holodeck together?
Yeah, just wait there. Just wait there. I'm doing it right now.
I think you are going to, I think that is what's going to happen.
How much, when are you going to be bringing us back so we know the timing?
Yes, so in 15 minutes, let's say 20 minutes.
Okay.
In 20 minutes, we'll be holodecking you back.
Hi, Lisa. Can you please do a 2-minute summary of what I've missed? Just 5 minutes that I've been absent. Here is Katrina, our newcomes intern, who just joined the call with me.
Hi, Katrina. Okay, while everyone is being transported to their rooms.
Okay.
So we are about to do some group work. And when did you leave? What did you miss?
Just when Colleen asked if we could have the systems and strategy, everything here in the chat. So it's just, I think I didn't miss much, but.
Yeah, no, you didn't miss much. So I've just put that in the chat. Did everybody see that?
No.
No.
Yeah, I think you might have sent it to someone privately.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Put it on everyone.
Okay.
All right, so everybody has it on the chat. The groups are ready. Are you ready to get transported? Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Accepted.
Okay, so, oh wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we visit the groups?
Would you like me to send you to a group?
Yes, so we've got 3 groups, have we?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yes, if you could send me to the first group, that would be good. And when will you bring me back?
Oh, you have to leave. You have to leave whenever you want.
Oh, how do I do that? Oh, I'll see.
Yeah, you have an option there.
Okay.
One sec. Here we go.
Breakout room 3. Okay, Matthias?
Yep.
I'm back. So that group is on their way and they've decided on their topic. Can you send me to the next group?
Yep.
This is fun, this group thing. I'm really digging.
Or I'm sending you to another group. Here we go.
Okay.
Do you see the notification?
No.
No.
Oh, it says down here, join breakout room. Should I?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, they seem to be working well.
All right. Next one.
Yep.
All right. There we go.
Huh. Press the button.
Hello.
This is so funny. Just popping in, popping out. They're all working very well.
All right. So when should we bring them back? In 5 minutes?
In 5 minutes, yeah.
All right,
and then that'll leave us 10 minutes to quickly discuss, and then that's it. Yeah. So I guess we give them a couple of minutes each to present. I don't think I'll be able to ask each individually to talk about their insights. I don't think we'll have time for that. But
yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. All right. Maybe I'll just quickly go to group 1 again and see what they're doing.
The first you went to?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. So maybe give them 1 more minute.
Okay.
And then we bring them back. I think this is great, these breakout rooms, because then because if you have all of these people all the time, it's hard to get engagement and people to talk.
Yep.
Whereas this way, they really can discuss.
Yeah, smaller groups are always good.
All right, is that a minute?
I asked them to, I give them 1 minute. I gave them 1 minute, so they need to accept. So they will start popping up in a few seconds.
You know what, I'm going to tell Rebecca to take some of this sleep stuff for you to the workshop.
Please, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be so great.
It really works.
Yeah, I've tried everything, like breathing, meditation, all that. It doesn't work. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Have you got what? Is it worries that are keeping you awake? We'll talk about it later.
Way of bringing a discussion to a close, isn't it? Right, we're put it all back together again now.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoyed this first experience of the rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Great.
But in the Star Trek analogy, you don't want to be the one member of the cast you've never seen before, because you know the one that's going to die on the planet's surface and not come. Yeah, that was good fun.
So do we have everyone back? Has everyone been beamed back into the room, Matthias?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Great.
All right. Well, we have about 7 minutes left for the session. So what I had hoped to do was to ask each of you individually about your insights in that process, but I don't think we really have time for that. So I'd like for a representative from each group to talk a little bit about what you discussed and what came up through that discussion, and what were your key plans or actions that you decided upon. So we might start with the first group, which I think was Rebecca, Colleen, Christina, and sorry, I've forgotten the new lady's name.
Katrina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Katrina. Okay, great. So over to you guys, to some representative from your group.
Well, I can start, but I need help from my colleagues probably, because we didn't have time to finish our thoughts. But we decided that we were going to work on production. So our main challenge was how to tell the story of the platform and to who. And we were thinking that our objective is to keep all the stakeholders engaged and to make them want to be part of the platform. And we thought that for that, we have to direct our messages to them, but also to the general public, if possible, to make like a bottoms-up strategy. So to have the public involved, so they put the item that we're talking about in the agenda. And it's like it works both ways, actually. If we have somebody, I'm going to say the activity that we thought first. We're going to have a champion, like a thought leader or an influencer in the sector, to have an op-ed, a very strong op-ed on the issue that we're talking about, which is sustainable palm oil and the problem it represents with all the angles that we're looking at. And him putting this in the agenda and the public hearing about the story will make also the government want to be involved in this, because when it is converted into a national item, then everybody wants to be involved. It's like the Me Too movement, for example. Once it is out there, everybody wants to be part of it, because it's important. People are talking about it, and you don't want to be left out. So we feel that that's an important strategy to have everybody on board. And one of our main actions would be in the media with this op-ed, which would be like the main action. And then we would also have, of course, a website with a story, with more like a multimedia kind of thing, so people can go there and have the whole thing in video and can get more information once they are interested in the topic. But this is everything we had time to discuss. Probably would have to be more detailed in how that would work. And I'm not sure if I'm leaving anything, Colleen or Rebecca, and that you want to add.
Well, my only other real suggestion was to make it relevant to the national passions of dance and comedy,
exactly,
archery. So maybe the platform could have, like, I don't know, an archery logo or a dance theme. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, and then the second group, which was Adinda, Vanessa, Charlie, and Gradia.
Charlie, you want to go ahead?
I think it's up to you, Gradia.
Okay, let me just see. So basically, we talk a lot about how we intend to work together with different stakeholders. Primarily, we talk about the private sector. And looking at our experiences, both from Indonesia and Liberia, with government and private sector, and the ways that we felt that what worked with us and what we are still working on. So I will go ahead and maybe Adina can add them very quickly. So I talked primarily about having at the very beginning a session with all of these stakeholders when you are planning a strategy for the platform. Make sure everyone is on board. We'll have a workshop, make sure everyone is on board with the messages, the objectives, the goals from the very beginning. And then as you move the platform strategy, the communication strategy forward, make sure that we have coordination between all these different stakeholders, have a coordination team with all of them so that we have one message going across and we don't have information saturation and everybody saying something else, so that we are not, how do we call it, divided. So having an interagency hub, and I mentioned that this is something that's been going around, we've been talking about it. So Adina, maybe you can add quickly.
Hi, yeah, sorry. We talked a lot about how to engage the private sector. So we think it's best to have a tailored message to them so they know what the benefit is of this platform, and how they can join us, but also get something out of it. Yeah, and also to show like how this is all led by the government, so the government has to be always visible in our meetings, in our communication materials. They have to be seen as the ones leading this effort.
Okay, great. When I eavesdropped in on your group, one of the interesting conversations that you were having at that very moment was around connecting the overall vision of the platform with the communications strategy so that they're very closely aligned. So I understand you were talking about systems, but at that point you were going into the strategic area. Yeah. And you were talking about the very clear and close link between the vision and communications, which is quite interesting because often communications is sort of considered at the next stage, once everything's sort of figured out, but brought into the actual beginning point of the vision. Did you want to say anything about that? Maybe Charlie, I think you were making that point.
Hi, yeah, sorry. I just had to get out and get back in so that I have my controls back. Yeah, you know, it struck me that convening a meeting to agree a communications approach almost was underselling what you're asking for here. You know, what this really goes to the heart of what's the purpose of the platform, which is totally about you know, the vision and what you're focused on achieving. So rather than say, you know, we're going to have a workshop on platform communications, which people might think, okay, we'll send our communications officer. Think about, you know, framing it in a way in terms of, you know, we're exploring the vision for the platform and how best to engage stakeholders. So you start the conversation about at the heart of it, which is what are we trying to achieve here? What are the benefits people are seeking? And it's a very strategic conversation. And then at the back end of that, you can say, okay, what does this mean for how we position the platform? What does it mean for how we communicate? What are the key narratives? What's the best way of engaging people in this? And then the communications strategy flows naturally out of what is, in essence, a very strategic conversation.
Great, very good point. And I like how you mentioned that, you know, that has to involve people in the management level, at the senior level. It's not something that just the communication officers should be discussing amongst themselves.
Yeah, because if you just get the comms officers to flip, you know, try to create some nice narratives, but that's not actually reflected in the thinking of the kind of the senior people running the agenda, then there's going to be a disconnect, because it's also important what's the framing that people are running with, what's the narrative that people are running with in their heads. And the more that you can get that strategic narrative embedded in how people think about the platform, the more successful the platform is going to be. So that's where there was an example of you know, Sime Darby in Liberia, sort of saying, well, why do you want us to come to this platform? We've been a couple of times, we're not quite sure what the point is. And then Gradia flipped it around and said, well, what do you want out of it? They named one specific thing, which was a RSPO national interpretation. And then we were able to say, well, that's a key thing that we're looking at. And then all of a sudden, by understanding what was the strategic benefit to them, they could actually see the whole platform differently and see it strategically. So you need everybody, all the key people, all the key senior people, to see that strategic rationale for why are they participating? What are they in it for? What are we all trying to achieve? And then the comms side, you know, flows naturally out of that, rather than trying to bolt something on after the event.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then the final team.
Yeah, following on from what Charlie was talking about, actually, the trick we thought of, which I've used in the past, is not to call it a communications committee, but we chose the middle option to go with. So looking at the systems. So we weren't sure quite how much would have been done by the strategy lot before we got hold of it. But anyway, we were going to have a 2-level group, which would include both the CEOs, so they would get together and discuss, or the senior ministers, whatever's the relevant name for the particular stakeholder. They get together and discuss the things they wanted the platform to represent. And then it'd also be, as part of the same group, the communications people actually get on and do the job. So you'd have those discussions simultaneously, so you wouldn't have that disconnect that Charlie was quite rightly identifying between the communications people trying to communicate stuff and it not being agreed by people further up the organization. So that was one mechanism that we'd use. The other thought that came out was that we'd start with that group again, unless it had been done by the strategy group, to have a mapping process where we talk about the geography, the position of each of the partners who was there, because as far as we understood it, 2 government agencies, 2 civil society, 2 private sector, maybe one of those would be the old guard who've been following the sustainable route, and one of them might be one of the organisations with the new investors who are trying to get away on a lower basis, and at least then they'd be outnumbered by the others, so you might be able to bring the standard up of that. But anyway, in that mapping, you'd look at what you agree on. So that point that came up earlier about being positive, what is it we want to say together about this, and looking at the things that you agree on. And in work in coffee that I've done, that comes down as what's pre-competitive and what's post-competitive. So what does everybody agree on? Everybody can promote that through the production systems and through dance-based stand-up comedy, which clearly is the way to communicate with the Zealandia audience. Anybody else in the group want to say anything? Aileen or Miriam?
Very good job.
Okay. Sandra, do you want to add anything? No? Okay, so we learned a lot because of the 15 minutes of people contributing their experiences. That was a great bit at the beginning.
Great. All right, well, thank you very much. I think this was an incredibly rich discussion, and I really like how we had so many people from different perspectives joining this discussion today. So the next step now is that I will collate what's come out of this session and the previous session, and send all of you a summary of this. And then in our final session, we will prioritize some of these ideas that have come out, and maybe hopefully come up with a top 10 tips or some sort of very easy to use guidance on how to do this well, that we can share within the community and as an outcome of these 3 sessions. Are there any questions or final remarks that anyone would like to make?
Thank you for transporting us.
I'll just say this has been a really interesting conversation for me. It makes me sort of shift a little bit how I think about my own work and the relationship with communications, and so it's been great. It's been really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the conclusion that we had running the background of our discussion was that these strategic decisions, etc., really become real when you think, oh, we're going to have to put that out in the outside world. So stuff that's written down on a piece of paper that seems quite logical in a meeting room, when you actually start thinking about how we're going to communicate this in the outside world, it has a different reality to it that can make you think again.
Great, all right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your morning, evenings, lunchtimes, afternoons, and we will be in touch again very soon with more information about the next session.
Hey.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.